Welcome to Discover Crime. Today we'll look at the abduction and murder of Angie Housman. Let's get stuck in. Angie Housman was in 4th grade with a personality that was hard to ignore. She always had a smile on her face and simply loved people. Angie's family and friends described her as someone that never saw the bad in a person, which led her into easily trusting others. It was a parent's worst nightmare. 9-year-old Angie Housman disappeared on November 18, 1993, after getting off the school bus in St. Anne. She had a short 4-block walk to make it home, but she vanished into thin air. A neighbor who usually stood guard at her window to watch children get off the bus did not do so that day. Another neighbor who watched the afternoon drop-offs from her front porch was away, tending to a sick father. 30 minutes passed by, and Angie's family became concerned. Being absent this long was very uncharacteristic of Angie, despite her extroverted personality. At the time Angie should have arrived home, Angie's mother was asleep, as was Angie's 2-year-old brother. Angie's stepfather, an auto mechanic, came home about 5 p.m. and woke up Angie's mother. There was no sign of Angie or her book bag. Angie's parents reported her missing, and the search began immediately. After days of the initial search for Angie, no credible leads were given to local authorities. Although there was no shortage in manpower to find the missing 4th grader, the case left investigators baffled. Sadly, on November 27, just 9 days after she was abducted, deer hunters found Angie's body duct taped to a tree in the Bush Wildlife Area in St. Charles County. It was a horrific and gruesome scene. Angie's partially nude body was bound to a tree. Her eyes were covered with duct tape and she was handcuffed. An autopsy determined Angie had been raped and died of exposure. Evidence suggested she had been starved, tortured, and sexually assaulted. Even more disturbing, she had only been dead a few hours when she was found. This meant she was kept alive during the 9 days she was missing, and that if she would have been found just a few hours earlier, perhaps she would have survived. Yet that wasn't to be. This also expressed how brave and resilient little Angie was. Angie's mother said that Angie's hair was changed during her disappearance. It was shorter and the color was changed. Angie was kept alive for 9 days. That meant the killer was living in the area. The crime sent local parents into a panic and led to one of the most intense police investigations ever launched in the St. Louis area. It was a dual jurisdiction case. The abduction occurred in St. Anne, the murder in St. Charles County, but the investigation went well beyond those 2 areas. The major case squad was involved, so was the FBI. Detectives interviewed 400 deer hunters who had been issued permits to hunt in the wildlife area where Angie's body had been found. Detectives were determined to find somebody who had seen something. No possibility went unexplored. In addition to the unlimited manpower, there was plenty of evidence with the body. Handcuffs made in Taiwan bound Angie's hands behind her back. Grey duct tape was wrapped around her head, covering her eyes and mouth. There was a partial fingerprint on the duct tape. The fingerprint was documented and compared to everyone the police came in contact during the initial investigation. Unfortunately, no match was made, but it kept police and family hopeful for a resolution one day. In 1993, investigators collected more than 150 pieces of evidence. Back then, that sole fingerprint was the best evidence they had to go on. Sadly, the case grew cold. Decades went by until 2019, a forensic scientist analyst determined a piece of evidence at the crime scene had an unknown suspect's DNA. A crime lab expert tested DNA evidence found on the pink trim pieces of Angie's torn underwear. A search of the combined DNA index system, a national database, led authorities to Earl Webster Cox, who had family that lived just 3 blocks from Angie's school at the time of the death. Cox joined the Air Force in 1975 and was dishonorably discharged for sex offenses involving 4 children while stationed in Germany. He was court-martialed in 1980 and served 8 years at Fort Leavenworth. At the time of Angie's disappearance, Cox had moved back to Missouri after a second arrest for child abuse in 1992. Cox pleaded guilty in 2003 to trying to entice a minor across state lines for sexual activity. In 2012, the court certified Cox as a sexually dangerous person, and he was committed to federal custody indefinitely under the Adam Walsh Child Protection Act. Records show police might have been closer to identifying the suspect than they realized through the years. His name was included on a list of sex offenders the FBI assembled 4 years after the murder, but he was never questioned. Cox was charged with murder in the first degree, kidnapping in the first degree, and sodomy in Angie's case. Prosecutors took the death penalty off the table because of Cox's poor health and age. This move angered some of Angie's family. Angie's aunt said she didn't get to graduate, she didn't get to get married, she didn't get to have kids. He took that away. So why would we give him life in prison? And we pay for his meal 3 times a day. You know, it's not fair. It's not fair. In 2020, the 63-year-old pled guilty to first-degree murder and child molestation. Earl Webster Cox will spend the rest of his life in prison. Angie's mother, Diane, passed away in 2016 from cancer, never knowing who killed Angie. Thank you for listening, and let us know what you think about the case below.